Hey guys, it's Gamma. Welcome to episode 6 of Exposing the Cult, a podcast in which we discuss what once used to be one of the most inclusive and prideful communities, but has since been corrupted from within by a cult of gender ideology. As always, I like to get the episode started by saying thank you to all of the listeners, the viewers, the followers. Without you, I wouldn't be coming back each week to put out this content, but the comments and the messages that I receive of people saying thank you for using my voice keeps me going. Not everyone is able to use their voice or use it as eloquently as others, and I feel that I have the ability to do so. And so for that reason, I will keep speaking up for women's rights and to protect children and to protect all of us from being indoctrinated into a cult ideology. Don't forget that if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on future podcast episodes or other content. And don't forget, if you would like to purchase merchandise, you can head to exposingthecult.com. I design all of the artwork and use Teespring to ship it to you worldwide. I also have set up a Patreon and I'm working on getting content uploaded there as well. So if you'd like to go check it out, make sure to head over to my link tree. I'll leave it in the description below. Now to get into why you're really here. This week's episode of Exposing the Cult. I do a lot of research. I read a lot of books. I bring you guys facts and articles and verifiable information. And I like to sit there and make comparisons between historical fact and current events and current actions by the cult of gender ideology. This week, I'd like to do something a little bit different. Instead of reading a book, I wanted to show you or allow you listeners to hear things that are said about women, to women, in regards to what being a woman is online. See, women are being silenced. We're being censored. We're having our accounts banned regularly. We are fighting for our history, for our rights, and for our ability to continue to speak about being women openly and honestly without that being called hate speech. Not only is it women who are being attacked by the cult of gender ideology, but the LGBs, the OG LGBs, and even some of the newer ones who recognize that lesbian, gay, bisexual are all sexualities, while trans is a gender ideology. They want nothing to do with the other. And those within the trans community that contain that alphabet of LGBTQA, right? They're the ones who are telling the LGBs that they're not welcome in their own community that they built. So not only are they saying that women don't have a right to womanhood, but they are telling gays and lesbians that they don't have a right to their own community in which they established. This week, we're going to focus specifically on women, though. I want for you guys to understand that the things said and done to women right now it's crime. It's horrendous. We are bullied. We are doxxed. We are just vehemently hated online for speaking about being women. And this is a dangerous thing. You know, they didn't burn witches. They burned women. It was the 1880s before women were off the urinary leash and had public restrooms worldwide for women. And if you don't know what the urinary leash is actually a saying, a phrase, if you will, for the fact that women, when they went out in society, if they were to go out on the town or go to lunch or go to the library, there were no female bathrooms. There were men-only bathrooms. So they had to stay within the realms of their own home in order to be able to go to the restroom. Then, in the 1920s, women, thanks to the suffragettes, were finally able to gain the right to vote. In the 1970s, Title IX came around, where women could wear PE uniforms and have their own sports leagues, because men didn't want them in their sports leagues. 1970s, women gained the right to own bank accounts without having a husband or a father sign off on it. 1980s, women were allowed to own their own homes, their own mortgages, without their husbands or their fathers to sign off on it. In the 1980s, women were finally able to establish their own businesses without their husbands or their fathers to sign off on them. Women's rights are very young, and we've had less time than 100 years, 130 years, less than that of these rights. It's only been 103 years since women gained the right to vote. It's only been 130 years since women had their own female bathrooms. But listen, if transgenderism has been around since the 1950s, as we know because of John Money, that means men have been going into female bathrooms in less than 100 years of women having that space. If the 70s were only 50 years ago and men have been in our sports for over a decade, that means that women didn't even have a lifetime career worth for sports for just women. 40 years, maybe, give or take. Women had sports for themselves before men started competing in it. Oddly enough, the men didn't want us in their sports, which is why we had to create them. We can own our own businesses. We can have our own bank accounts. But still, these are rights that women fought for. We fought for an equality as a protected sex in society alongside men. And now with gender ideology, there is a group of men separate from the standard of society who believe themselves to be women, to be better women than women themselves. And they expect, not ask, expect and demand that they have access to our spaces, our scholarships, our political positions. When they identify as a woman and they rape someone and they're registered as a woman, they are impacting our demographics as women. 58.9% of men in prison in the UK that have identified as a trans woman and have transferred into female facilities have sexual assault records against women and have assault history against women. This is not a falsity. This is a fact. You can go to the UK Parliament website and you can find those statistics there. It's extremely dangerous to continue to allow men that want to harm women, because again, this is not all men. And I don't know how else to say that, right? But it's not all men. There are genuine men who exist in this world who are partners and we work in society together. And then there are those who are the nefarious type who wish to control women. And how easier to control us than to become us and tell us that we have to remain silent, or we're bigots, we're TERFs, we're white supremacists, and we're Nazis. These accusations that they throw are absolutely uncalled for and untrue. Just because we said, whoa, we should not allow men who have violent records against women to self-ID and gain access to our spaces. That does not make us hateful. That does not make us Nazis. And that does not make us bigots. That means that we are standing up for our rights as women, and we are trying to defend ourselves, protect ourselves. Someone said to me the other day that women don't need protection and they don't need safe spaces, but we do. We absolutely do. To sit there and say that we don't have danger in society because we're women is absolutely ridiculous. It is a fact, a known fact, that within the LGBT community, many people have been abused in one way or another in their life. If you don't believe me, you can check out Gays Against Groomers. They post statistics about this type of thing. There are other gay content creators that do discuss these as well. It's a hard truth to acknowledge that there are individuals who are not mentally stable within a community. They are in every single one. But what's happening with gender ideology is those who are the most damaged are being just given open access to the spaces of women and children. And no one ever asked women. It was forced upon us. In 2018, 2016, 2018, what happened? We had the Me Too movement. We listened to women. And here we are in 2023, and women aren't even allowed to speak. I've made videos where I literally just duetted a video, and I ate a cracker. And I received a strike on TikTok for eating a cracker, and I was told that it was because of hate speech against a protected class. Well, I have something to say to TikTok, and I have something to say to YouTube and to every other social media platform out there that is silencing women like myself. Women are a protected sex class. You cannot continue to silence women, demonetize us, deplatform us. If you think that silencing women is going to allow this cult to just take over, you're wrong. Because we're not letting that happen. We are using our voices. We are going where we have to speak. Twitter by far has been one of the best platforms for myself to connect with women across the world and be able to see that this is not just something in the USA. It's not just in Canada. It's in the UK. It's in Ireland, in England. It's in South America. It's in Australia. It's in New Zealand. It is everywhere. And it is a nefarious thing. When an ideology thinks that good is evil and evil is good, they wish to cause us harm. And they treat us like we're the nefarious ones. We're the harmful ones. It's interesting to me that so many companies and so many individuals that exist blindly fall under the guise of this ideology that is just festering with hatred. They hate women. They hate any of the gays who don't want to be a part of gender identity and gender ideology. They detest anyone who's a Republican. If you say one thing that they don't like, they shut down. They don't listen. They will not listen to a single word that you have to say, even if you are speaking truth and fact and you have multiple articles sitting in front of you, links to them, videos. They are blind sheep following some dark shepherd, and that dark shepherd is gender ideology. And I think there's more than one shepherd, and we talked about that last time. Right now, I want to show you or have you listen to a video of a gentleman named Douglas K. Murray. And this is what he has to say about when men speak up about the cult versus women.
I say things about trans issues which Julie says, which J.K. Rowling and others say, and I get absolutely no blowback. I don't get mad, purple-haired maniacs gluing themselves to the floor when I speak in public.
I just have to say, I am a purple pink-haired woman. We're not all maniacs. We're not. Some of us do have common sense and are standing up against this gender ideology. So hopefully you see this and my podcast. Okay, great.
Julie Bindel gets the threats, gets these people hounding her. J.K. Rowling gets them. Kathleen Stock gets them. If anyone wants an absolute proof of this, there's a disgusting website that is the residue of a defunct gay paper called Pink News, run by a pseudo-journalist called Ben something or other. They have run thousands and thousands of articles in recent years attacking J.K. Rowling, basically as the devil incarnate. She holds precisely the same views on trans that I do. She holds precisely the same views on trans as her fellow Scottish writer Irvine Welsh does. How many times has Pink News attacked Irvine Welsh? Zero. They believe, and this is a very important point if I can say so, the weird alphabet people, clown car people, believe that they should be allowed to control lesbians and gays and women in particular. They believe that if we don't have precisely the lockstep views they have, we are traitors. And the people that they believe they should have the right to control the most are women.
Thank you. Thank you, Douglas K. Murray. I need to follow him right now on Twitter. This is what we're saying. And finally, it's being outed on mass media around the world. People are becoming more and more aware of how women are being treated and what this ideology wants to do. If they can take over what it means to be a woman, they have brought womanhood down enough to mean nothing. Which means that once again, women in society mean nothing. And the thing is, they want to elevate trans over women and make trans women the ideal supreme version of woman. And regular women aren't good enough, right? But then they say that they can't wait for uterine transplants so that trans women can have children. So they need women to complete that, right? Because it can only come from an actual woman to have a transplant, which, by the way, there was one back in the 1900s that was performed on a trans woman, so a man, and he died because his body rejected it because it was too foreign and it was not meant to be in his body. So there you go. The fact that they want to tell us that we can't speak about what it means to be a woman and tell us that they can't wait to use our body parts to produce children themselves is scary. It should scare you because they say horrible things. They make threats about killing us and shooting us and hanging us and wanting to watch us die. Yet, if we simply say you are a man, not a woman, that is hate speech. That is committing genocide. And that's just not true. This is an emotional manipulation and it's narcissism. It's narcissism. And that's what the cult of gender ideology likes to use. They use these tactics to make you feel guilty for existing as you are. To the white women out there who describe yourselves as cishet white women who are privileged in your body and your skin and think that acknowledging that about yourself somehow makes you like this pure ally and stuff. It's not. You're feeding into the chaos and you're doing yourself a disservice. No woman, no matter what race or ethnicity she is, should hate herself, nor should any man, no matter what race or ethnicity he is, hate himself. No one should hate themselves for where they come from. People should be taught, children should be taught to love themselves and appreciate themselves, but also to love and appreciate and respect mutually themselves and others. When I was growing up in the 90s and the early 2000s, I was raised to just appreciate those around me, appreciate myself, love my culture and my upbringing, love other people's culture and upbringing, and not to hate those things. But with gender ideology, they resent. They make people resent each other for not having the same upbringing and not having the same ideology. If you have a dissenting or defecting opinion or upbringing or perspective, they don't like you, and they will make sure you know it. This next video that we're going to watch is of an individual on TikTok whose video has since been taken down. This was about a month ago, and I responded to it. It's on my Instagram if you'd like to see that. I think I also uploaded it here on YouTube as well. I have to tell you, this is one of hundreds, if not at least 1,000 or more videos that I have seen in regards to the way that people speak about women. And in this sense, they're talking about cis people, but we know based on this creator's content that this was about women. This is a man who had SRS surgery, which is sexual reassignment surgery, and they have decided that they are a woman. And this is how they speak to anyone who does not agree with their ideology.
So I see so much casual transphobia every day, mostly directed at trans women specifically. And I'm pretty sick of it. So I wanted to come here and ask a favor. Every single transphobic person, please die. Please just drop dead right now. Eradicate yourselves.
Wasn't that fun? See, this is the ideology that I keep telling you guys about. They talk about how there's this mass trans genocide, right? But they teach children that if they don't transition, they're better off dead. And then they say to everyone else to just kill themselves so that they can live freely in the world without transphobia. Transphobia, by the way, is not respecting pronouns. Transphobia is saying, hey, why don't we get you guys your own bathrooms? If it's not a problem for men and women to be together, and you guys say it's not a problem, why can't there be a trans bathroom? Like there's a male bathroom and a female bathroom that women wanted in society. So let's make a trans bathroom. That is a transphobic statement according to gender ideology. But here's the thing, it is not at all. That statement is a very rational statement to make. And when someone tells you that that is transphobic, they are gaslighting you. They are being narcissistic and they are manipulating you because they are indoctrinated into the cult of gender ideology. I've talked about casual transphobia on my podcast before. It's inherently bullshit. It's bullshit. Let's take a look at another, shall we? Okay, so this is in response to a comment. It says, this is like when Christians role play it being illegal to be Christian and being beaten up by atheists in prison. Same level of delusion. I don't know what it was a response to, but for those watching, you're going to see a series of images of articles being shown about women being placed in jail for quote unquote transphobic statements.
Are you sure about that?
So the first one says, filmmaker faces 3 years in prison for saying men cannot be lesbians, charged with hate speech. December 15th, 2022. Scotland, gender critical feminist charged over allegedly transphobic tweets. Scottish accountant Marion Millar's case seized on exemplar of clash between free speech and trans rights. Scotland, Scottish prosecutors drop transphobia case against Marion Millar. Excellent. Good. Critic of plans for transgender law reform had been charged with posting allegedly homophobic and transphobic content. Really? They have discontinued the case against a woman charged with posting allegedly homophobic and transphobic content online. Here's the thing, though. What they do is they say that if you don't stand for gender ideology, that you're homophobic and transphobic. No, that's not true. It's actually homophobic to want to transition children who would probably grow up to be gay because they don't stick to the binary norms, When you transition a child who has gender dysphoria from one sex to another so that they'll be with someone of the same sex that they were born, so that technically they're straight, that is inherently homophobic, and that is conversion therapy. And we talked about that on episode 2 of Exposing the Cult. So you can go back and check that one out if you haven't listened already. British woman may find herself in jail over transphobic tweets. Okay, so this is again about Marion Mylar. She had been charged under the Malicious Communications Act, which makes it illegal to send or deliver letters or articles that purposely cause distress or anxiety, for posting transphobic and homophobic tweets in 2019 and 2020. The feminist activist and mother of 2 autistic children faces 2 years in jail if convicted. So we already know that it was taken away, but she was literally facing 2 years in jail for wanting to protect women's rights. Tell me we're not being treated like the witches. This is a current witch hunt for women. And they didn't burn witches, like I said. They burned women. That's their history repeats itself, right? We had a century, 100 years of women's rights, and still, I mean, our husbands could beat us until about, I think, the 80s legally. So, how long have women really had rights? And now we don't even have the right to speak our opinion. Way to take it back. That's gender ideology. That's what gender ideology has done. Feminized men and silenced women. Tasmania rules against women-only spaces for LGB Alliance. Wow. Tasmania decrees that lesbians will be breaking the law if they host single-sex spaces. Anti-Discrimination Commissioner Sarah Bolt banned the LGB Alliance Tasmania from hosting lesbian events that exclude trans women on the grounds that such gatherings carry a significant risk of breaching existing equalities legislation. No. Women have the right to women-only spaces, female-only spaces. And just because someone has a piece of paper that says that they are the opposite sex does not mean that they are. It is scientifically proven that men have a proclivity for crime, and even after they transition, that male proclivity remains within them. There are studies on this. It's fact. Female-only events banned by Tasmanian tribunal. So this is another article about that. I can't believe that. To Hoyle, these community spaces, so the female-only, are a lifeline. In Tasmania, the lesbian community is hugely disadvantaged because we are female and we are same-sex attracted. Lesbian-only spaces matter because we need to feel free from the harassment of men and to be able to freely associate with one another in a safe environment. Women aren't asking for much. We just want to gather without men. And to say that that is an illegal, unequal thing is horrifying. You are taking women's rights back by centuries with this ideology. We cannot stand for this. LGB Alliance. It is so painful to read this in 2021. So this was 21. Lesbians will be breaking the law in Tasmania if they exclude biological males who are transgender from social events after a controversial discrimination ruling set to become a national test case. Wow. Hashtag lesbophobia. It is. It is absolutely, it's lesbophobic and it's homophobic to not allow lesbians to gather without men. Bid to exclude people with penis from lesbian events unlawful. Wow. It's okay. So this is again Tasmanian. I was deprived of my liberty in an unnecessary and undignified way. Gender critical Catholic mother blasts Surrey police who swooped on her home and arrested her in front of her traumatized children without a warrant over series of malicious posts. October 2022. Oh my God. Woman arrested in front of her children for sharing opinions about gender. Sky News host Rita Panahi, says British woman Caroline Farrow was arrested in front of her children last week because she dared to share her opinion about gender being biological. That has seen her get into a few Twitter spats with trans activists, the type that call J.K. Rowling a bigot and much worse, Miss Panahi says. And last week, while she was roasting a chook for the children, police came in and barged into her home, demanded she hand over all of her electrical devices, and then the Surrey police dragged her off to jail, where she spent the next 8 hours frightened and understandably stressed. Tell me you're a Nazi without telling me you're a Nazi. They like to scream that we are the Nazis, we are the fascists, right? But their ideology is so ingrained in our society right now that police are literally taking women to prison, and fathers, there's a father in Canada, putting them in prison for misgendering someone, not using the right pronoun, whatever, and speaking about biological fact. That is a fascist take on society, to silence people in that manner. And we talked about fascism. I think it was episode 3 of Exposing the Cult. So make sure to go back and check that one too. It's abhorrent in society today in 2023 that women are being imprisoned for speaking truth. Truth. It is not transphobic, homophobic, bigoted, or fascist to say that a woman is an adult human female. And those who are allowing their minds to be manipulated by this ideology, you are actually supporting this cult behavior, this fascist cult behavior. And it is going to harm women more and more in the future and take away more and more of our rights than if you were to stand up and allow yourself to be alienated from a community that hates everyone anyway. They hate themselves so much that they change their sex. It's not their gender. If it wasn't just a gender thing, they wouldn't be having sex reassignment surgery. They're changing genitalia. They're changing their sex. It's not a gender. It's their sex that they're trying to change. These are not the same thing as their ideology claims, right? They say gender and sex aren't the same, so why have the surgeries, right? Lawsuit. Female prisoner says she was raped by transgender inmate. February 19th, 2020. An inmate at Illinois' largest women's prison says she was raped by a transgendered man who was transgender woman, but it's a man, who was transferred into her housing unit last year, and claims Illinois Department of Corrections officials conducted a sham investigation to help cover up the incident. A transgender woman at Logan Correctional Center from a men's prison has faced rape accusations and remains at the women's prison in Lincoln after the governor's office reportedly overruled a move by correctional officials to return her to a men's facility. More than one Logan inmate has reported being sexually assaulted by Janiyah Monroe, known as Andre Patterson, by the Illinois Department of Corrections. According to court docs, in a federal lawsuit aimed at forcing correction officials to adequately treat gender dysphoria and improve care for transgender inmates, they moved this man into a female unit. New Jersey trans prisoner who impregnated 2 inmates transferred to men's facility. Oh, thank God. Thank God for this one. Demi Minor, 27, has been transferred from New Jersey's only women's prison to the vulnerable housing unit at a men's facility. Wait a minute. Where did they source this one? So this man who impregnated women in a women's facility was put back into a male facility, and this writer says from the only women's prison to the vulnerable housing unit at a men's facility. You are so indoctrinated that you don't even realize, you just completely dismiss the victims. This guy is Seth Winnig, the Edna Mahan Correctional Facility. Okay, so the image was by Seth Winnig. I can't tell from this screenshot what the source was for this article. Out News. Oh, duh. It's at the very top. My bad. Out News. Okay. How much propaganda? Let's talk about propaganda, shall we? Propaganda is one-sided to make other people look bad, right? They like to, the Nazis use this. We talked about this as well. They like to demonize other people in their artwork, in their verbiage, in the things that they publish. They like to control the media, okay? And here, in that sentence, where they call the housing unit of the men's facility vulnerable, but they dismiss the fact that this man, identified as a woman, still had his penis and impregnated 2 women? Who are the victims? Who are the victims? The women who are already vulnerable in the most vulnerable place that a woman can be. And you're going to try to victimize this man because he's trans. Becoming trans doesn't inherently make you a more elite person for support and to be elevated and lifted up. If you're a criminal, you're a criminal. I don't care how much bodily mutilation you do. I don't care how much injections of hormones you take. If you are a criminal, you are a criminal. And if you harm women, you don't deserve to be in women's spaces. Period, point blank. Oh, here's another article about this Demi guy. The transgender woman who impregnated 2 women in prison now fears for her life. Is this Out News again? I don't know where this is published on. This looks like a different site. First of all, it's a him. Stop using pronouns for criminals. The fact that there were people defending the shooter a couple months back, ew. We're not going to respect her pronouns. She was a woman, and she was mentally ill. And here, this man who claimed to be trans because of gender ideology, he got to get away with it. He was able to be placed into the women's facility so he could be around his victims more easily. Demi Minor is a transgender woman incarcerated in New Jersey prison system because of an incident between her and inmates at the all-female Edna Mahan Correctional Facility, which resulted in 2 pregnancies. She is now at an all-man Garden State Youth Correctional Facility. She says, I am approved for surgery, which has made my time in the male facility dangerous. So I have been on suicide watch numerous times. I'm losing weight, and truthfully, my mental health is a complete wreck. Again, why are we as a society allowing emotional manipulation for suicidal tendencies? We should be helping people not be suicidal, not inflating their ego and feeding into that behavior, right? It's like with a toddler, you know what I'm saying? When you're trying to teach them not to do something, for instance, don't put your truck, your little car, into the dog's water bowl, and they do it, and you say, don't do that. And then when they do it again, you pick it up and you take the car away. Well, they get upset, right? And then they go and then, like, let's say they go to do that again. I'm going to do this. I'm going to put it in the water, whatever. Don't give them the truck back, right? Help them learn. People should not be learning an ideology that teaches them to gaslight people and use suicide as a way to emotionally manipulate people. I mean, what the hell happened the last 3 years? Narcissistic TikTok was everywhere. Narc talk was a thing. People were identifying this kind of behavior as narcissistic. Yet as a society, a large portion or small portion, but loud portion is lifting up this behavior. Transgender inmate in prison for rape of young girls is accused of sexual assaults on female inmates. H&P Bronzefield, Surrey. So that is in the UK. Transgender child sex abuser savagely beat female inmate who thwarted rape attempt, says complaint. So this man tried to rape a woman and she filed a complaint and he beat her. He beat her. But these are women, right? No, these are men. And they are trying, this one specifically is an autogynephiliac. They like the pleasure sexually of being a woman with women. That's what they like. That is what autogynephilia is. And he gets off on it. And he beat a woman who didn't want to have sex with him. Transgender rapist moved to women's prison after sex change. A rapist who has been moved to a women-only prison after having gender reassignment surgery, Jessica Winsfield, formerly known as Martin Ponting, was relocated to H&P Bronzefield in Ashford, Surrey. The convicted rapist was previously held at top security Whitmore Prison in Cambridgeshire, where she, quote unquote, was serving a life sentence. Before her gender reassignment, Winfield complained of being victimized for being a transsexual. Women do not want rapists in our spaces. And these are the type of men using trans as a guise to infiltrate our spaces. I don't care if he has had his penis cut off. It doesn't matter if you've had surgery. At the end of the day, you are what you are and what you have always been. And you are a threat to women in every way. And you should not be given flat out rights to women's spaces because you claim to be a woman when this is your criminal record. There needs to be a much stricter guide around what it means to be trans. Gender ideology wants to make it so confusing that we can't put parameters on it. But they want to put everybody else in a box, right? They want to put everybody in a box, but they want to make all of this terminology to confuse all of us, right? 1984, the doublethink, the newspeak, we talked about this. And then they don't want for us to be able to speak about this. What I am saying is considered transphobic because I don't want this man, and he does not deserve the right to have a female pronoun in women's spaces. It is a scary, scary thing that in this world today, this is what they call a woman. And this is what they make us women accept into our spaces. And there are countries in which women cannot even legally speak about hesitation. They can't question it. They can't speak up about their fear of it because they will be deemed the criminal for speaking up on their own behalf or the behalf of women around them. And I have freedom of speech in the US, and that's why I'm using it. Because this is unacceptable. This should not be happening. This is a human rights issue. This is unacceptable. Male inmate sexually terrorized incarcerated woman and was moved to men's prison. Stephen Wood transitioned to Karen White. Disgusting. I'm so glad that he was moved out of a female prison. There appears to be a few instances in here Diana Shaw, I've seen this reporter and a couple of these clips now. So I'm going to have to look up that reporter and see what other kind of content this person posts. I don't know what site these are on, but again, let's go. Following alleged sexual assault, female inmate challenges legality of placing violent males in women's prison. UK, Surrey, England, October 21st, 2019. A woman who says she was sexually assaulted by a male inmate launched a high court action challenging the lawfulness of placing sexual and violent male offenders in women's prisons. The male inmate convicted of raping a woman is housed in a woman's prison because the inmate identifies as a woman. And then there's a little grade quote here. Transgendered women prisoners with gender recognition certificates must be treated in the same way as biological women for all. This is not acceptable. This is not okay. If a male has an assault record of physical violence or sexual on women, they should not be permitted, just because they claim to be trans, to be placed in our prison systems. Nor should they be allowed to access to our domestic violence shelters. This is inherently cruel and unkind. You are allowing these men to be placed into a pool of basically free victims. That's what it's happening. People are allowing men to be just dropped in with their prey. It's like putting a piranha in a koi pond. That is exactly what's happening here. Lawful to imprison trans women sex offenders in female jails, judge rules. Oh, God. July 2021. High Court for England and Wales rejects challenge of former inmate who claims she was sexually assaulted by trans prisoner. A legal challenge to prevent transgender inmates with convictions for sexual or violent offenses against women being imprisoned alongside other women has been rejected by the High Court. A female former inmate who claims she was sexually assaulted by a transgender woman prisoner with a gender recognition certificate, GRC, which again, I think I mentioned last episode, the GRC, it's the GRA, but the GRA is the act, the C is the certificate. This was from the early 2000s, and it has caused mayhem in the UK. While the HMP Bronzefield in 2017 asked judges to declare the Justice Secretary's policies on the care and management of trans prisoners in England and Wales to be unlawful. It's laughable that you are so embedded in the pockets of this human rights campaign propaganda that you would allow this nefarious, disgusting behavior in female prisons by men. Rory Stewart, a former prisons minister, officers raped by trans prisoners. UK, London, England, former prisons minister Rory Stewart has said female prison officers were raped by trans-identified male prisoners. So male being actual biological males, trans-identified male would be a man, a biological man. The former Conservative MP, who is standing as an independent candidate in the race for London mayor, told GQ magazine that while he served in the government, there were situations of male prisoners self-identifying as females, then raping staff in prison. Situations, not once. More than once. While the case of Karen White is well known, a trans-identified male born Stephen Wood who raped female prisoners after being transferred to a women's prison, this is the first time the rape of a female prison officer has come to light. Oh, but they're equal, right? These men are women, right? They can't overpower us, right? Wrong. These are fucking examples, guys. These are examples of why men do not belong in women's spaces, especially men who claim to be women. And do you know when we say that they're grooming children into this ideology and they're changing them, they're having them block their hormones so they stay looking young like children forever? Right. Well, I think you need to think long and hard about that. We're going to get back to that in a few episodes. But I really want you to think about the fact that if these children don't have puberty and transition, if they detransition, they forever look like a child. And then I want you to think about everything we are talking about in this episode about these proclivities and the fact that these people, these men, maintain those proclivities after they transition. Why are these adults pushing onto children to stop puberty so young? Never have puberty, never go through puberty, which, by the way, I believe I read the other day an article, 84% of children who go through puberty, their gender dysphoria goes away. They're preventing nature from its process. But who likes children? Pedophiles? Oh, right. Pedophiles. Daniel Reeves, a male convicted pervert who now identifies as a woman named Ella Davies, has a predilection for watching the rape of female toddlers. Dear God, did I hit the nose before this one? He is seeking a transfer to a women's prison. Plymouth, England, a father of two who blames gender dysphoria for his urges to download images depicting the rape and torture of female toddlers, is now seeking transfer to a women's prison. Serial offender Ella Davies, who was arrested 12 times in 2016 alone for the possession of indecent images of children, says his prolific sexual criminality stems from gender dysphoria, autism, depression, the breakup of his marriage, loss of contact with his children, and surviving child abuse. The former soldier, who was named Daniel Reeves before he began identifying as a woman, was handed a 2-year suspended sentence in 2016 and ordered to take a treatment course for sex offenders. Mr. Davies claimed through defense lawyer Barry White that gender dysphoria prevented him from completing the course. I'm staring into my camera right now, listeners. Is this registering for you guys? Is it registering? We don't make these things up. Women are being gaslit for sharing these stories. And we're being told this never happens. It never happens. You're wrong. You're a liar. These people aren't, this isn't real. These people aren't trans, whatever. These are trans identifying people. Your gender ideology says that it is. And if that's the case, then I have to take that these people claim that they are trans, and therefore that means these are members of the trans community. And the fact that there are people in that community, I know for a fact, actually, that there are trans individuals, there are hundreds out there, at least. I've found a community of them on Twitter that do not stand for gender ideology. They do not want children to be indoctrinated. They do not want women's rights being taken, our terminology, our spaces. They wanted to acclimate into society. They did not want to dominate in society. And the men like this taking advantage of trans and this whole agenda right now is dominating in society and silencing women is a problem. It's an actual problem. And more people are waking up to it. And it's a wonderful thing. Celebration as male repeat killer wins transfer to women's prison. Celebration as male. Repeat killer wins transfer to women's prison. I had to read that twice. Two-time killer and career criminal Donna Brown was recently transferred to an all-women's federal prison, Grand Valley Institute. The transfer follows a 3-year battle waged by the inmate's fiance and the Barry Pride organization. Fans of repeat killer Donna Brown placed his image on a Free Dawn banner during a campaign to have him transferred to a women's facility. This cult is using activism to gain rights in society for criminals. They are calling people who don't defend or use the right pronouns or place them in the proper biological sex prison as a way to make people say people are fascist, bigots, transphobic, homophobic. This is the gaslighting that the cult is doing. This is a great video. I hope that you guys are, I hope that it's starting to absorb for you. I didn't start this podcast because I was pulling it out of my ass. There was evidence that I was seeing, and luckily I sent this video to myself weeks ago, and I hadn't even really looked into it. I just thought this one might be helpful, and you know what? I really hope that this podcast is listened to and watched and seen, because these stories need to be heard. So if you're listening, please share this. Share this. Share this with the women in your life. Share this with the men in your life. Share this with everyone, because they need to know what is happening. Male, female, transgender sexual offending per capita in the UK, England, Wales. Despite the persistent controversy of trans women, male prisoners housed in the female prison estate, the Ministry of Justice, the MOJ, does not disaggregate transgender sexual offenders by sex. Meanwhile, gender ideologues claim trans women, transgender males, or TGMs, pose no greater threat to female population than females. Okay, so of the male sex offenders, this is from womenarehuman.com. So from 2001 to 2021, 99% of sex offenders in England were male. Oh my God. I can't read this. It's too small, but I'm guessing it's the same year. 99% of transgendered sexual offenders were male. 79% of transgendered prisoners were male. Oh my God. 79% of transgendered prisoners with sex offenses were male. That's even higher than the freaking UK Parliament study. "79% of transgender inmates were male, and the remaining was female trans men." But they were all in male prisons, or female prisons. They weren't in male prison. Oh no. Okay. New aerospace analysis applied to MOJ transgender sexual offender statistics obtained in Freedom of Information (FOI) requests tells another tale. In the absence of disaggregation by sex, this measure of sexual offender per capita of the transgender population, both sexes, is already far higher than that of the female population. It is the stark difference in the propensity to sexually offend between male and female that is the key to the sex segregation controversy. For all public spaces sex segregated for the sexual protection of the female population. The MOJ recently stated that safeguarding of female prisoners relies upon individual offending histories of transgender males when less than 2% of rapes result in a conviction. This MOJ process seems to take no account of the individual sexually offended against histories of female prisoners, nor of the necessarily higher incidence of female-specific rape trauma, which is more than among them than average. So they're not even looking at the women to say, have you been raped? Are you comfortable with men in your space? They're just they're only thinking about these men who claim to be women and want to be placed in women's spaces. That's it. They don't give a rat's ass about women. When we say this is a war on women and that they're coming after our kids, this is a war on women. If they can weaken women, they can get to our kids. Because as history has shown, all they have to do is fight and take out the men, right? And they're feminizing men. That's what they're doing. They're feminizing men. They're weakening men. They've broken up the household so men and women can't cohabitate and get along. The divorce rate's real high, right? And then they're indoctrinating children. And then you have split family homes where one parent is transitioning a child into this ideology and the other parent's fighting for it to not happen. And that parent's not gaining any rights to their child. And they're watching their child be transitioned in front of them, and they'll go to prison if they don't allow it. This is really messed up. Really messed up, guys. Joan Smith, women's activist, lost her job over transgender views. A women's activist said she was sacked after raising concerns about a transgender woman using rape and domestic abuse refuges. She lost her role as a co-chair of London's Violence Against Women and Girls Vogue board after she brought up the issue. Writer and journalist Miss Smith was fired via email after being in the post since 2013. This was August 2021. Because she doesn't think that men should be able to self-ID as a woman and be in our domestic violence shelters where women are escaping men who have raped us. Because as we know, based on the case in Canada, these men who identify as women, they're not having surgery. They're not having surgery. And they are basically a piranha in a koi pond. Dad, transgender grooms rapes 3-year-old daughter, receives 18 months in woman's jail. A 33-year-old man who self-identifies as a woman has been sentenced to 18 months in a provincial jail for the repeated rapes of his own 3-year-old daughter. The sexual assailant's name is being withheld from the public to protect the identity of the young victim. Quebec City, Quebec. Good job, Canada. Way to think about the actual victim here, eh? Two male transgender adults arrested for filmed sex abuse of one's daughter. Somerset County, New Jersey, a 32-year-old male described in some mainstream news sources as a transgender mom who fathered a 7-year-old will serve a 25-year sentence in state prison for raping and allowing accomplices to rape the girl on film. Marina Vols, who now identifies as a woman and was previously named Matthew, won custody of his daughter in 2018. He moved the child from his mother's home in Oregon to his home in Franklin Township, New Jersey, with the aid of 2 accomplices and the plan of sexually abusing his daughter and filming it. He revealed in his confessions before Somerset County. This man planned to do this. Planned to do this, and he did it. Diana Shaw, I love this writer. So apparently does the original creator of this TikTok. But this, I have to look up this author. Diana Shaw, your stories are just hits, lady. Hits. Thank you for exposing this. I don't know if you'll ever hear this podcast, see this podcast, but thank you, Diana Shaw, for your contribution to getting this news out here. Oh, that was May 14th, 2022, by the way, guys. Oh, here's better pictures of the two individual. Marina Volz and Ashley Romero, who are both male and identify as women, admitted to bringing Volz's 7-year-old daughter across state lines to rape her and capturing the repeat rapes on film. Under New Jersey law, male inmates who identify as women may be imprisoned with women. He raped the child alone and with the accomplice Ashley Romero, an aged 28 male who identifies as a female and was previously named Adam Romero. Mr. Romero also jointly raped the child with Sean Allen, aged 54, United States Navy veteran. Oh my God. Oh my God. That is extremely upsetting to me. New Jersey woman who forced daughter she fathered into child porn sentenced to 25 years in prison. A transgender woman was sentenced Friday to 25 years in prison for forcing the 7-year-old daughter she fathered to participate in child pornography. Marina Volz, 32, of Franklin, was sentenced along with 3 others by Superior Court Judge Peter Toubert for their roles in running a child pornography production company in their Colburn Lane home in Franklin Township. So this is, again, another part of that same story that we just read. Transgender serial killer who hates women will soon be eligible for parole. May 28th, 2022. So in the AU, Anaki, Victoria, so Australia, 30 years ago, terrified residents of a suburban town took cover indoors at night as a killer embarked on a 7-week killing spree. Now serving a life sentence for a series of stalking murderers targeting women because I hate them. The inmate will soon have a chance at parole. Oh, God. Video of the police interrogation following Mr. Denier's arrest show him laughing when asked, "Were you responsible for the deaths of these women?" After over 1,500 questions and hours in police custody, the suspect nonchalantly confessed. "Can you explain why we have women victims?" an officer inquired. Mr. Denier replied, "I just hate them." The officer responded, "I beg your pardon," to which Mr. Denier reiterated, "I hate them." The officer asked, "Those particular girls or women in general?" Mr. Denier told the officer, "General." Mr. Denier additionally revealed, "I've always wanted to kill, waiting for the right time, waiting for that silent alarm to trigger me off." So this man spent 30 years in prison and decided to identify as a trans woman. Why? Do you think that perhaps it's because he's heard how easy it is for trans women to gain access to women's spaces in society now? So this transgendered woman, this man, can go back into society and freely access our spaces. We are his prey. He hates us. And if he gets sexual pleasure out of himself being a woman, he too is an autogynephiliac. He hates us so much, he's becoming us, so he can probably continue to kill us. Just admitting the obvious observation here, guys. Transgender serial baby killer gets gender-affirming surgery, moves to women's prison, sources say. Booking photos show the transition of Jason Michael Hahn, violent killer of 2 babies and abuser of a 3rd baby, all of whom he fathered. Hahn now identifies as transgender and has legally changed his name to Jessica Marie Hahn. He's convicted of senselessly murdering his infant daughter and son and abandoning their body in storage units. And he's moving to a women's prison. Must have moved. March 20th, 2019. Male inmate non-transitioned demands female guards perform his strip search. Andrew Burns, now known as Tiffany Scott, by the way, for those listening and not watching, the photo here is of a man with abs, shirtless, and like a towel thrown over him, in handcuffs, being escorted out. This is a full man. This is a full Nothing female about him. Andrew Burns, now known as Tiffany Scott, under police escort due to his reputation as Scotland's most violent prisoner, demands female guards perform his strip search because he claims he is a woman. Wow. More allegations of male prisoners sexually assaulting female prisoners and abusing the system. In what is becoming an all too familiar occurrence, another formerly incarcerated woman reports that multiple male inmates have sexually exploited female residents while incarcerated at the Washington Correctional Center for Women. Parole decision confirms another male prisoner was violent towards incarcerated women. Ottawa, Ontario, Women Are Human recently disclosed Angela Valentino's Board of Canada, the PBC. I'm sorry, the TikTok is covering part of the name for the maybe it's Pablo Board of Canada. It says PA. I don't know, but it's called the PBC. It confirms female prisoner reports of Valentino assaulting and or threatening them while incarcerated at Grand Valley Institution for Women, GVI. Women Are Human. So that is where all of these articles are being brought from, by the way. Women Are Human. Has additionally obtained the July 2020 PBC decision for a different male prisoner, Steve Mellenbacher, which also confirms a female. Transgender teen with patterns of violence against women, anxious to be jailed with women. Limerick Munster. So this is 2020. A teenager who was born a male but identifies as a female is facing 4 counts of making threats to kill or cause serious harm. The accused, who has demonstrated a pattern of criminal and extreme physical and sexual violence towards women, is eager to be held in female custody. The image on the screen, I mean, this person has clown makeup on. It's actually quite eerie. Famed transgender identifying activist accused of violent murders of female couple and couple's son. I talked about this actually in episode 1. I believe that this is the same story, 2019. Parolee decision confirms male prisoner was violent towards incarcerated women, 2022. Transgender femicidal killer of 2 indicted on new charges after body parts found. Harry Marcelin, a serial killer and accused rapist, was recognized in his apartment building for his distinctive wig, nails, and lipstick. Marcelin, who is male, began identifying as a woman following prison stints for the murders of 2 women. He stands accused of murder and dismemberment of a 3rd woman. Oh, gosh. Violent male inmate who identifies as female. No woman should be imprisoned with men. Okay. Diego R. Melendez, a male convicted murderer who identifies as a woman named Marilyn, moved to federal court with testimony that no woman should be forced to be around a man in prison because it's humiliating. The testimony helped sway the judge to move Melendez to a woman's prison, where he is now housed. I'm sorry. You are a man. You are a man. You are a man. He's not a woman. To say that it is humiliating. It is humiliating. It is humiliating for us women that you men are in our spaces, in our most vulnerable spaces. It is humiliating for us who have been victim of sexual assault to have to be in the same place as men who sexually assault us. That is what is humiliating. The fact that this judge put this man into a female prison is humiliating. Okay, so this is continued. In Illinois, by the way, A vicious convicted killer has transferred to an Illinois women's prison with the aid of the American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU. The HRC and the ACLU, guys, they are so lost to gender ideology. They don't give a shit about women. They don't. They are just pushing this agenda for these men at this point. Prison for female offenders was a site of scandal last year after it was revealed that another male inmate placed there was being investigated for the violent rape of his female cellmate. Diego Melendez, a man who was identifying as a woman named Marilyn Melendez, moved to federal court with testimony that it is humiliating for a woman to be forced to be in prison with men. I have to go to the yard with men. I have to be surrounded by men, go to eat with men. I have to go to counseling with men. I am being subjected to be around them 24/7, even if I am in my cell by myself. Mr. Melendez testified before the United States District Court for the Southern District Court of Illinois while housed at Pontiac Correctional Center, a men's prison. I am not male. No woman should be forced to be around a man in prison, but you are a male. You are a man, and you're a murderer. You are a convicted killer. You don't have the right to invade the space of women. This is what's going on in our society. We are being gaslit. We are being just completely abused and disregarded because we don't want this proclivity for criminality from these men in our spaces. And now me saying this doesn't mean, again, that it's all men. It's these men here who are using women as a way to gain access to us. This is not okay. It's not okay, guys. Please hear us. This is not okay. And we do not consent. Male rapist of 12-year-old girl groomed vulnerable woman while in women's prison. Transgender ex-police officer, child sex predator jailed for violating release terms. Transgender convicted violent and sex offenders fight to move males to women's prison. Trans-identified male reported for vids eroticizing violent abduction of children and women. Male accused of multiple felony offenses is recorded as a woman in criminal records. Male involved in gang rape, bludgeoning murder of women, seeks to move to a woman's prison. Male sexually violent predator transferred to women's jail after identifying as a woman. Transgender individual pours boiling water on casino patron who spurned sex advances. Get out of jail free card. 12 times judges decided being transgender is punishment enough for criminals. Criminals around the world are walking free or getting a slap on the wrist in increasing numbers by telling judges that confusion or distress resulting from gender dysphoria or transgender identity made them commit acts of serious as rape, abuse, gang assaults, terrorism, and downloading images of child rape. Convicts who walked free or got off lightly after pleading transgender. Oh, the list isn't on here. I'm going to have to go find that list and make a different short video for you guys about it. Transgendered farmer, veteran killed employees, fed bodies to pigs. Medford, Oregon. Quote, I do not value human life very much. End quote. A killer of two, now serving a sentence in a women's prison, said in a taped confession, quote, my feeling is the only thing wrong with the planet is there's people on it. If not for us, all of the other animals, even dodo birds, would be here. End quote. Transgendered women. ACLU represented transgender terrorist, diaper fetishist to secure gender self-identification in New Jersey women's prison. The ACLU of New Jersey tweeted, Sonia Doe is a woman who's been improperly confined in men's prisons for 17 months because she's transgender. We filed suit 2 weeks ago. Yesterday, the Department of Corrections said she'll be in New Jersey's women's prisons next month. An important step while the suit continues. This isn't okay. This is not okay. The ACLU is absolutely pushing gender ideology onto the masses. This is heinous. This is a fetishist. This is probably somebody with other proclivities that are not disclosed here. And they're being placed in with vulnerable women. When did men with mental illnesses become more important to put into a fucking bubble than to protect women and to protect children? When did this happen? Argentina. A man who groomed and murdered a child quietly changes gender identity, may be transferred to women's prison. May 5th, 2023. Father who sexually abused 7-year-old daughter for trans porn company now recorded as female offender by the NJDOC. See what I'm saying? This is our demographics. This is female demographics. This man has now increased the criminality for women because he is now being recorded as a female. This is unacceptable. This is the same as if we were to muddle demographics for ethnicities in society. It is not acceptable at all, and it has to stop. Video of 13-year-old drag kid dancing at a party sponsored by gay hookup app goes viral. I remember that, April 29th, 2023. I know the people who had shared that tweet, and it went viral to millions of people. They shared that video on TikTok, and she was being harassed for it. Her account got banned. It got mass reported. I mean, if you follow the trail and you look at what companies are hosting these events and what those companies are about, like look at Pride. Pride isn't about pride and families and love anymore. There's it's just fetish, literal parades of fetish, and kids are there with these men on all fours in dog masks, like licking themselves. It's weird. Men whipping each other on the back of a truck in a parade in front of children. It's wrong. This is not acceptable. Convicted pedophile changes pronouns to she, her during sentencing for abuse of a 7-year-old child. This is a man. Ireland, transgender male inmate in women's prison threatens to rape female officers. Oh, look, it's clown face again. April 27th, 2023. That's the end of the video. Okay, look. I am absolutely disturbed at the amount of articles that exist that are factual proof and evidence that women are being set as a subset and a subclass of their own sex. We fought for our rights, as I told you before, earlier on in this episode, to be where we are today. And here we are being pushed aside, disregarded, and the focus is these trans women. Like, none of these articles are about trans men. Why? Because women are not men. And even if they transition to become trans men, they do not have the same proclivities that men have. This is fact. We have data and statistics for this reason. And now our data and statistics are being muddled, as we just saw, because they're using self-ID. This is dangerous. It is dangerous for us as a society now and in the future. This is not okay. And I really hope that people start to wake up. Wake up and realize what is going on here. If you don't understand demographics, please start learning. So what is a woman? A woman is an adult human female. She went through puberty. She was created in the womb to be a life giver. We suffer from infertility, but that does not make us less of a woman. And we go through menopause, which is a part of womanhood. That, again, does not make us less of a woman to no longer have our period. We have a uterus, a vagina, a vulva, a clit. Our bodies are made to develop and change our blood when we have a pregnancy. Our organs shift inside of us to make room for the child or children in which we are carrying within our wombs. We are the counterpart to men, to males, to help carry on the human race. We were created for a purpose, a divine purpose to bring and carry life in this world. The men who are role-playing that they are women, using trans as a guise to infiltrate our spaces, this is unacceptable. And when you are transitioning children and putting them on puberty blockers, you are preventing the most natural course of their human life, which is to experience puberty, which does help with gender dysphoria. I implore everyone who is listening, if you are listening because you hate me, I hope that something rang for you. Some kind of truth that I have shared with you tonight has rang an alarm in your head so that you realize that it's not all rainbows and sunshine on the side of gender ideology. This is what we don't want in our spaces. That does not make us transphobic. That makes us aware and alert of what's going on. We women have fought for our right to have our voices. And we will not sit idly by and as our voices are being silenced across the world. Again, I said it earlier, but I'll say it again. They did not burn witches. They burned women. And this is the witch hunt of the century. Make sure that if you haven't already, that you hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. I look forward to next week's episode of Exposing the Cult, where we're going to talk about the LGP departing from the T. See you soon.